What is up, everyone? Thank you for joining us for today's episode. I sat with Frank from Bronco. Now, this man literally drives a SEMA show vehicle as his daily driver. He's an attorney for self-driving vehicles. So obviously I asked him if all the rumors about the nefarious acts that Tesla are up to were true. We talked about his charity that he's part of and what he's going to be doing on November 11th. We talked about upcoming trips he's got going on. He gave us some insight about the Bronco world. So sit back, enjoy, grab a coffee, and let's get this one going. But first, a thank you to our sponsor. I want to thank Pour Off-Road Coffee Company for sponsoring us, for being a part of this adventure with us, for making these morning coffee talks, or whatever I'm going to call them, possible, and making an absolutely gangster cup of coffee that I get to have every morning and afternoon, and sometimes I have it in the evening as well. But yeah, thank you to Pour Off-Road Coffee Company. You guys are amazing. Veteran-owned. I want some coffee. Veteran-owned coffee company. They give back to the community. They always have some sort of giveaway, some sort of promotion on the go. So hit that link down below. Go check them out. Get yourself a bag of coffee. Tag me in it. Tag them in it. Let us know what it's like, because I'll tell you what, I love my coffee throughout the day pretty much, and I drink a shit ton of it, and it's delicious. So check them out. Pour Off-Road Coffee Company. Thanks again.
My truck is pretty much built for Baja style, fast desert running.
Yeah.
Plus the overland build. So it's an interesting combo. It's a lot of weight to be moving that fast, but with the suspension that I have, it makes it really fun.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I haven't. I don't think I've ever really wheeled in any kind of sand, so I have no idea how that. But I definitely want to get on some beaches and do some camping on some beaches, because it always looks just like a perfect view.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm hoping to do before the end of this year is go up the Lost Coast Trail. That'll take me like down all along Northern California's coastline up into Oregon. I've done some camping on the beach at a place called USAL, USAL, which is like this little secluded horseshoe beach that's surrounded by pretty steep cliffs, and you camp right on the sand. It's like this little oasis. There's no cell service. The only downside with that is that it's becoming a little bit of a party spot, because it's not that hard to get to. Like, you just need a average clearance vehicle. I've seen people do it in Subarus, basically, if you're not afraid to like bang some stuff up. And so I think, when you go to these places that are not, they don't require too much to get to, that's where people who don't really respect the land start to fill in, especially after like COVID, people learning about places like this. So it's a shame, but when I do get out, I like stuff like that. But the Lost Coast Trail, you really do need like 4-wheel drive vehicles, and you take it further up north and you get away from some of the more common spots. That's where the joy is. The more secluded places where you gotta just getting there is a little bit of an achievement.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, I've talked to a few people that are that's kind of what they say. Like, depending on if they see certain vehicles in the camping areas, they typically won't stay there. Like, if they see like a Toyota Corolla or smaller vehicles that didn't really have to try that hard to get there, then they'll keep going to the little bit harder spots to
Tesla.
get to.
Out here, it's always Teslas. You're
really?
Like, why are you here? Like, well, what are you doing?
So I mean, they couldn't be going too far from home, because I mean, their power is not going to get them overly far, I would assume.
Yeah, well, somehow I never see them stuck. So, they're just they find a way.
Oh man, that's awesome! And then you're just rolling by in the big old Bronco. I love
Yes,
it.
sir.
All right, man. Well, let's get this going, and then that way it won't keep you too long. But you're you're the first person that has a Bronco that I've spoken to, which is for me very interesting, because I was selling Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep vehicles before COVID, and then halfway through, I kind of left the car world essentially, right as the Broncos were kind of coming out. So I've never actually really spoke to anybody that has a Bronco, but I'm very fascinated by it, and especially your build is just an absolute beast. So
Thank you. Thank you.
that's I always like just staring at it, but I don't know if I know there's this Jeep versus Toyota, but I don't know where the Bronco comes in there. If you guys have any kind of rivals for that, but I do love the stance on a Bronco. I find it's probably the nicest stance on any of the off-road overland type vehicles. Like it's just wide and the body just seems like a rectangle with two giant fucking wheels on the side is usually what it looks like. I love the stance of
Yeah.
a done up Bronco. How like
Yeah, they've got an iconic look to them, and I really think when they re-released this new version, they took the best elements of the different years of the Broncos and totally made it just perfect. They listened to people. You know, you asked what's the rivalry here, and I think a lot of it is still the Bronco versus the Jeep. I think that's typically the discussion. But I'll give the diplomatic answer and say the Bronco, I love it. I've got a biased view, but it's good for everybody. This truck made what you can get from the factory. They raised the bar on what's standard and what you should be able to have, and I think it's just going to force all of the competition to just improve their platforms. So if you're a Jeep guy and you look at a Bronco, I encourage you to look at it fondly because it's just making your future Jeeps better. That's how I look at it.
no they in terms of a discontinued vehicle that comes back to life, it's probably up there for one of the best ones that actually kept its origin and kept its traditional look. When you look at kind of everything else that popped up from that kind of went away and then came back, that's one of the few that I
Mhm.
find actually looks like the Bronco should. Fast forwarded a few decades in the future.
Yeah, and tastefully. The last time I remember seeing this, I think the way they did the Challenger, which was ironically the car I had before the Bronco was a Dodge Challenger.
Yeah.
And I just thought like that one, the lines of that vehicle, there's just an art to it that it never goes away. It's timeless. So I think the Bronco is very similar. My first vehicle ever was Bronco, so I knew when they were coming back out with one that I was going to get in line, and then I made the most of it. I'm really happy with the build, the way it's turned out. I was very fortunate to get the truck as one of the first people to get one, which was pure luck, really. But I made the most of it, and the build has been a work in progress for 2 years. I would say I want to say I'm basically done now, but I feel like I've said that a bunch of times throughout this process. So who knows?
Yeah, that's I've from myself and then a lot of people that I know when I was in the car world, especially from guys that had a Subaru to guys that had high performance cars or Jeeps or trucks. It's never done unless you put a lift and tires on it and you never plan to use it. It's never done, man. There's always something else that you're like, oh yeah, I guess there's some room here. I can do that or this or yeah, but it looks good, man. It's a nice rig.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you do you go how often do you go on trips with it?
This year in particular has been a little bit slower for me because it's been in the shop a lot. I've had like a lot of pretty substantial upgrades being done this year, which was like the suspension, which required the wide body kit, which required painting, which required rewrapping the vehicle. So there was like a lot of things that took several weeks to get done, and I missed like a pretty good chunk of the warmer months this year. But typically, and for the rest of this year, I think I'll be out once every 3 weeks or so. Just depends on my schedule, what I've got going on. I try and get out at least one weekend a month, if not more. And most of those trips are, a multi-hour drive to get somewhere, whether that's like seeing friends that I've got now in Utah, Salt Lake City area, southern Utah, trying to get up the coast, going down the coast, down to the desert and like the Mojave, Death Valley. I've been doing one Baja trip a year too, which has been insane. If you've never been down to Baja, Mexico, it's awesome. It's like become one of my favorite places to go.
That's so when we left the car, like when I had said I left the car, well, we went down to Mexico and then we stayed there for quite a while, but we were in like the Riviera Maya area. So this next trip we're doing, we want to do the Pan American, but when we go into Mexico, I want to do I want to slowly, because we have a residency, so we have no time limits now. I want to slowly creep down the Baja kind of coast, and I'm super
Mm-hmm.
excited for that because yeah, like I've seen a lot of people posting stuff there, and what a beautiful spot that is, man. And we love Mexico
Yeah,
at this point, so yeah, it's definitely part of the plan for sure.
that's awesome. Yeah, it's gonna be a really cool trip. I'm envious of anybody. I know one guy, one of my good friends is trying to do that as well, but he took a ferry up to Alaska and was starting up there and going down the entirety of the trail. And he already ran into some catastrophic engine issues up in Alaska, so he got postponed a little bit. But those kinds of trips are just epic, especially if you can. I work a 9 to 5. The overlanding stuff is not my full-time gig. It's my recreation and my hobby. To imagine that kind of span of time to be able to do that is a really exciting idea. And eventually I will, whether that's like transitioning between jobs or who knows, early retirement if things go really well. But yeah, it's definitely an awesome trip. I'm excited for you and the family.
Thank you, man. We're pretty excited too, and hopefully your retirement comes early so you can hop on it as well. But I mean, even the trips that you're doing once every 3 weeks or so, that's still a lot more than what it's it's a lot more than I'm finding I see equivalent rigs in the overland world in social media doing, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Like I see a lot of rigs like yours, and it's a lot of like a picture in front of some trees, and I'm like, are you using
and,
it?
and shows like trade shows and things like that. I know
Yeah.
exactly what you mean. I've been complimented on that. I take that as a compliment. But it stands for authenticity really because number one, the brands that I've worked with and the accessories and things that I've put in there were brands that I sought out because I knew the products that they made and I wanted to work with them. Like I said, this wasn't a money making thing for me, and not knocking that. I'm just simply saying like I was out there trying to get products for my build to do the things I want to do
Yeah.
and work with companies that I liked. And that led to them like enjoying working with me. Obviously, I do photography, so I helped support them. They introduced me to more people that helped me with my build. But all the things that I have on there, yes, aesthetically it's pleasing, but it's a very practical build. The things that are on there for a reason, all the way down to the graphics that are on the vehicle. It's a paint protection film that protects against rock chips, brush, stuff like that on the trails. The stripes were put in the position that they are because it's a big splash zone, so it's like extra protection. Like there's nothing about the build that was purely just like so
Aesthetics.
that it looks more rugged than it really is or than it's used for. It's like everything is there because I use it and I can speak to it and I'm proud of it. So I get that a lot, especially I've been at SEMA for a couple of years now. The last 2 years I've been a show booth vehicle for a couple of vendors that I work with. And that seems to be the overall message that when people walk around the Las Vegas Auto Show every year, come to my truck and they're like, this is not a SEMA build. This is like a real person build, but like an optimal one. And that's like the best compliment I could get.
I mean, I know I've said it, but yeah, it's a beast of a build, man. It looks good, and then you post the pictures that show that you're actually putting it to the test. So people, like I've seen a few builds where I'm like, oh man, like that looks really good. Like I wonder how that works, or like is that how are they enjoying using that particular part or whatever? Is it improving their experience? And then I'm just searching. I'm like, well, when the fuck did you take this thing off road? Like how I want to ask you how you enjoy. Like, did it make a big difference? But you you don't post it off road. Like I don't see it. Anyways, yeah. So it's I definitely understand what you mean by practicality over making it pretty. And I mean, when you build it that way, it's just gonna come out
Yeah.
smoking hot regardless. So I mean, that's a win-win, right? But I mean, while we're on the topic, any brands that you want to give a shout out to for kind of helping you out, or anything that you
Oh
kind of
gosh. The problem with that, so many that I am afraid of offending anyone that I leave out. Maybe we'll post a list in your description in whatever you post, or I'll comment on it and drop all
well
the names there.
on your posts you have what you're using and all that stuff. So if any, and then so on that topic, where can people find you? Where can people find your work? Like, do you have? I know you have your personal page. Do you have a work page with because you're a commercial drone pilot, right?
Yeah, so that's also still just a little side hustle. So I'm an attorney at a self-driving car company in San Francisco that
Okay.
it usually throws people off because it's like the complete opposite of what I do in my free time. Instead of law and AI and robot cars in the city, it's like off the grid, off road, driving over rocks and disconnected. Um, but yeah, the best way to find me is the Instagram handle at Franco Bronco, FRONCO, BRONCO. And then I'm going to be launching a YouTube series later this year, but I'll post about it on Instagram for that once I'm done with the edit. Basically, going around for throughout this year, I've been filming all the installs at the different places that I've worked with for this year's upgrades. I've been doing interviews with the owners of the shops. I really
Nice.
want to tell like the people story behind these companies because they've all become friends at this point.
Yeah.
And I support them because I like them as people. I want people to know that about these companies so that when they're making their decisions on what company to support, a roof rack is a roof rack and there are differences in which ones they are, but like get to know these guys because like I really like the people behind them. It's the same thing with the suspension that I'm going with, uh, and a number of different companies. So I'm excited to tell that story and do a little more longer form content,
Yeah.
but I'll still post that on the Instagram. That's really the heart of my online personality at this point.
Man, I find like so right now we bought the Gladiator and then we're trying to upfit it slowly to get it ready. But I find there isn't enough of that kind of content because I'm trying to figure
Mm-hmm.
out what I want to put on it. But like that kind of stuff is what I've been, trying to figure out. Because like you said, there's a ton of different flies. There's a ton of different roof racks. There's a ton of different this. Like even just trying to figure out what phone holder I wanted to use. I was like, man, like it's hard to figure it out because there is so much of it out there. So it's nice when there is that longer form content that you can actually get an inside view. And when I picked our phone holders, that who the company was and what they do, kind of the extra that they do, pushed me to use them, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what you put out for that. But an attorney for a self-driving car company, what does this so like you so sidebar on that one. Me and
Yeah,
my
we can.
but me and my wife have an
Anything you
ongoing
want to talk about?
yes. So me and my wife have an ongoing joke that
Okay.
every time we see a Tesla, we say, well, that Tesla's on its way to go murder somebody because the drivers are never driving it. And we're like, we just always make the joke that a Tesla is just going to go hit a pedestrian that's
Mhm.
walking. And if you follow a Tesla long enough, you'll witness it hitting somebody. So are you an attorney for all self-driving vehicles? Just
No.
one kind? Like unpack it without, because I'm sure I personally could like pick your brain about this for hours, but give like a short unpacking of what that that entails.
Sure. I can do that. So I work for a company called Cruise. They've been in the news for reasons. Well, for mixed reasons. We haven't killed anybody. As but the key here is that we're trying to bring a taxi service, a self-driving taxi service to the masses, and in major cities first, because that's economically where it makes sense. People will pay for taxi service, and we're trying to make safer roads in congested and busy areas. There's a difference between our technology and what you're describing in the Teslas, although I think Tesla has the same end goal, which is, the car drives itself without any intervention. The problem that I see, and our company took an approach to this problem, approached it differently. We had paid professionals in the car who were trained to take over from the vehicle when the vehicle did something out of the ordinary. These people were contract workers that were paid for, they had salaries, they received training, they were limited in the number of hours that they could sit behind the wheel. We tested them for alertness, like it periodically. It was very rigorous to have somebody in the car and be ready to make sure the car didn't do anything inappropriate. With Tesla, they basically put that in the hands of the owners of the vehicles. And the more you build up a marketing around self-driving, full automation, whatever you want to call it, you're creating a perception that it's okay to let your guard down a little bit, and it's not.
Flawless. They'll never have
When when
accidents.
when these cars are still testing, they clearly are not ready to remove a driver from the driver's seat. That needs to be reinforced, in my opinion, over and over again. And you can't just trust that in the hands of drivers don't do a good job driving to begin with, right? So there's a huge difference in the level of safety, and it's a completely different approach. Now, if you take our cars, if you go to San Francisco, Austin, or Phoenix, Arizona, you can actually take one of these rides right now. They are driving around. There's nobody in the front seats. We've got the data to prove that the number of you can go on the website and they worded it correctly, but based on the driving data that the DMV has provided about humans, and based on the driving data that we have, over 4 million miles of driverless testing, we get into accidents, incidents, injuries, all that stuff less than humans. And so we are safer than human drivers in the cities that we are operating in right now.
That's
So it's
crazy.
pretty exciting, and it's only going to get better, but it's weird for people. And I get that. The first time I took one of those rides, it I was looking around, I was second guessing what the car was doing, but I'll tell you, like 10 or 15 minutes into the ride, I'm back on my phone checking my Bronco page and checking, responding to comments and things like that, and not even thinking about it. So it's pretty remarkable.
That's wild, but it makes sense that there would be more human error than autonomous vehicle error, I guess you'd say. Um, but what I find, so recently I saw a video, and I don't know, maybe you can attest to whether it was potentially real or fake, but they took a young girl who had only ever driven in a Tesla, only ever driven in a Tesla, and put her in a normal vehicle, and she had no idea what she was doing. She didn't understand that you had to press the brakes, and she didn't like. Is that actually what like? Is that Is that what a Tesla is? Like you legitimately never have to touch the brake essentially because it'll just stop on its own at all times?
I can't say I haven't been in one in a while, so I don't know what updates they've done, but I'm pretty sure activate the autopilot and self-driving, and it doesn't work everywhere. It doesn't work on all roads. That at least was the case at least a few months ago. I don't. It sounds a little bit inflated what you're saying,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I don't doubt the fact that the people growing up with the assistive technologies that exist today, she might not have known how to park either. I think that's one where you tap on your wiper thing and the car will park itself.
That's
So like maybe
nuts.
that's what she was describing, not even knowing how to operate a vehicle and park into a parking spot.
So the evolution of a self-driving cab with nobody in it, is that going to, like, do you see this moving towards self-driving delivery vehicles, self-driving cargo trucks, self-driving, like we're almost getting rid of all labor driving jobs essentially? Like, is that kind of where this would lead to a certain
Um,
extent?
it For each of those scenarios, there's different considerations on why some may take longer than others. I know somebody who's worked on self-driving trucking, but it was for the long stretch trucking. So, the cross-country highway miles driving. Once you got to a hub, which was like just outside of a city or something, that's when human driving would take over because the complexity of navigating a big vehicle like that in cities and narrow streets, we're so far from being able to do that efficiently. So something like that may start to take place. As for delivery, those things are happening right now. Our company has been doing self-driving delivery in Arizona for Walmart for the past year and a half, and but that's curbside delivery, and the person needs to come out of their house
Yeah.
and go get it from the car. There's still going to be a place for door-to-door delivery, where you have a person that's making that for the more personal touch. But I do think that in big cities, self-driving cars are probably going to eliminate some of the gig economy. Some people prefer it for a while. It's not going to be completely gone. As it is now, there's a lot of issues with the driver's supply in these cities anyway. That's why you see surge pricing, and why like sometimes in peak hours or after a sporting event, it can be very costly to hail one of those cars. This actually bring the prices down, increasing the number of rides for the drivers that are on the road still. But at the same time, with any technology that comes in and changes the way we live, you're going to probably see a decrease in certain jobs. You're also going to see an increase in jobs for maintaining those vehicles, refueling them, maintenance, all of that stuff. So, if you got a lot more of these vehicles on the road, specialized jobs will become available for that. There's always going to be some winners and some losers in these things, but at the end of the day, safety and accessibility, public transportation should improve as a result of this technology, and that's kind of what our principles there.
So that brings up another question: is, are these electric cars or are they fueled cars, and how, like, they just know, like, okay, we're at this level of power or fuel, whatever it is, we gotta head back to base and get topped up.
Yeah, we have an all electric fleet day, and the vehicles that we are building, because our parent company is GM, they're building
Okay.
a purpose built vehicle, which kind of has like subway doors, like train doors on the sides, and seats that face each other, no pedals, no steering wheel. Those are all electric as well. The sustainability aspect is definitely one that we've been promoting, and electric vehicles are a lower cost per mile as a result. The vehicles that we're building, I think it's something like they're intended to last 1 million miles with routine maintenance, tires, wheels, brakes, things like that. So it's a very economic approach to this problem, and it's going to bring the cost down for people when they need to hail a ride.
Crazy. That's just that's very very just crazy, man. It's hard. It's tough for me to wrap my head around the thought of that, or to think to like when we come through like the California area. Now I almost have to just hail one of these things and get in it just to get in it and experience this because it makes zero sense whatsoever to me. And yeah, I'm sure I'll be like stomping on the ground trying to hit the brake. Like, man, that's yeah, that's a little nuts. But
When
I
you do
mean,
pass
cool.
through, let me know. I'll get you a code so you can get the app and you can take a ride.
Yes.
Your first ride will be free too. So
Oh man, I'm sure my little guy that like I don't know how I'm going to explain to a 5 year old about a self-driving vehicle. Jeez, Louise. Oh man. Okay, let's get back to the overlanding world. Man, there's so many flies out here in the country. It drives me nuts. So if you see me swatting, it's because there's a fly buzzing around my head that I can't kill yet. Um, what what's your all time like the one place that if somebody says where do you want to go tomorrow? There's zero restrictions, zero limitations. Where do you want to go? Take the Bronco. Where's that place? And where's where's the like where's the number one spot on your bucket list of places you want to go?
man, that might be the same question. I mean, honestly, I really want to be out in Alaska. I mean, it's just such a logistical problem to get there in the time that I can, make available to do a trip like that right now. But everything that I've seen about Alaska is just so picturesque, so much nature, so much open land. I really want to get out there at some point. I'll be adding like a diesel heater to my truck this year. I'll be able to withstand some of the cooler temperatures up there, but at some point it's going to happen. It'll be a long trip, uh, but I can make that happen at some point. So that's definitely one of them. But my I've been there and I know it, and I know there's a lot more to see. That might be Death Valley for me. I've been kind of blown away by how much variety there is all within that region of the landscape. There's mountains, there's deserts, there's hot springs, there's volcanic structures, and there's just so much to see. And it's a massive land area. So I got to get back there as well. So those are up there on my list.
That's that Death Valley now is the second time that somebody has said that that's one of like the best places to go, and there's just vastness of places to see. So that's reinforcing me wanting to go to Death Valley, and then yeah, Alaska would be from everything. I've never been to Alaska, but I went to high school in territories in Yellowknife, so I've seen kind of the
Mhm.
cold and barrenish beauty, I guess, of that kind of land. But I definitely want to go to Alaska and see kind of the. It seems like when you're on four wheels and you're ripping around, you can see some wild stuff there.
Yeah.
And you would definitely need the heater because anything anything I find from about May to just about now north of the US border into Canada and up, like the mosquitoes are so bad. Like you almost
Oh
have to
wow.
go this time of year because the mosquitoes are just atrocious. Like how bad they get. But yeah, hopefully we can do Alaska depending when we can get on the road right now because we're battling a few speed bumps and hurdles. So instead of doing Alaska and then Canada and then the U.S., we might just go straight down California now,
Mhm.
rip over to Florida, and then kind of loop back around to Alaska on the way back up before going into Mexico. But no, yeah, Alaska's for sure one of the special places that are hard to get to because yeah, you would have to drive. You'd be what 3 days to drive up there? if you were just
Yeah, I
hoofing
don't know.
it.
I haven't even tempted myself with looking at the details. I know it's a long way. But that's what you just said. That's the key to me being like I love using the capabilities of my vehicle to go to places that few other people have ever seen
Yeah,
because
man.
few other people can even get there. Never mind the find the desire to go see them, but then once you have that desire, even have the capability of seeing it, I always feel like that payoff of being able to see something that only a few other people have actually taken in the same way. That's always what I am seeking when I'm trying to find like a really good trail or a really good camp spot. So I just feel like just the remoteness of that whole state, it should be just no shortage of opportunities like that.
No, that's kind of what makes like for us, we're a family of four, and that's why I wanted to get the Jeep is because I don't you can't get to places with a Class C or a schoolie or like a bigger rig. Like that 4x4 vehicle is what you need to get to those like
Mhm.
wild places where it's just kind of you just want to stand there and stare at it for X amount of time, right? So it's and I mean, yeah, when you got a Bronco that's built for it, may as well let her loose.
Yeah, the one complaint I guess about my truck is I don't think I could handle a family of four for a long trip like that. I think I'd need a trailer at that point. But yeah, it's
We'll
props to
see.
you.
We'll see. The boys are still young, 1 years old and 5 years old, so they're still small enough that they don't have a big footprint. But I mean, shit, we might get a week down the road, and I'll be like, screw this, we got to get something bigger. So we'll find out. Another question I had for the Bronco is everybody that I follow that has a Bronco on Instagram, the wheeling pictures always seem like it's only Broncos. It you seldomly see a couple Jeeps and maybe a Toyota and then a Bronco. You just see like Bronco, 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 Bronco. Like it's a little like clique of its own. Like you got the off-road overland, and then you kind of have the subcategory of the Broncos. Am I wrong, or am I just not seeing it right?
I think there's probably reasons why you see a lot of that. I think the Bronco is appealing to a lot of newcomers to the space. And I think it's brought in a whole new group of overlanders and people aspiring to be that. And I don't think they know where to go to start. I get this sense from like a lot of the followers and the people that reach out to me that and it was my own issues to deal with just a couple of years ago where I'm like, where do I go to learn this stuff? And it could seem uh challenging to like reach out to people that have been doing it for a long time. And a lot of the Jeeps, they're very hardcore. I know not all of them, and it's it's wrong to think that you couldn't reach out. The community has been like extremely helpful in all of this stuff for me. But I just think that the Bronco owners have gone through the Bronco forums
Yeah.
to learn about the vehicle, organize trips. The Bronco Nation puts on a lot of these trips, and that's like a nice little fan club group that they really do have like fun and informative trail rides and things like that. So I think that's just the nature of a large group of people who are new to a scene.
Yeah.
And I think over time you'll start to see that breakdown. Uh, but yeah, I definitely go out with a lot more non-Bronco owners because a lot of the guys that I've met are owners of these shops that didn't have a Bronco uh, because one didn't exist and they've been in the space for a long time. So I like to reach across the party lines and make peace with that. But I would say as long as people are getting out there, that's a good thing and that's a good start. And you encounter people while you're out on these trips, and you just start growing your network and keep learning from new people.
No, that makes sense. But like you said, like the forums and stuff like that, like you join the Facebook group for Broncos, and you follow Bronco pages, and But yeah, I just always found it funny. I just see like the panning of all the vehicles. I'm like, those are all Broncos. Like, oh, we're the Jeeps. But no, that's awesome.
I think once the new Bronco owners start, remember also that everyone that has a Bronco has a new car,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of hesitation bringing a new vehicle onto some of the trails that most other people think nothing of. So once they start getting their first dings and scratches in it, I think they'll start as a whole. The Bronco community will start branching out and taking a little bigger chances with their new property.
And because you have the first gen, have they made it to the second gen yet, or are they still working on the first?
Yeah, so this is well, technically it's the sixth gen Bronco was the new released
Yeah.
version. And so they've had a couple of model years now. Mine's a 21. They've come out with 22s and 23s. It's all considered the sixth gen. So it's all the same uh, platform right now. I don't know when their plan is for a seventh gen. It's probably still a few years out. I think they're just making like small tweaks, nothing substantial, but like better suspension components and different options. Nothing too big. And then they had the Bronco Raptor, which was like a big improvement upon
Bronco
the.
Raptor. So what is that? The 6.2 liter?
It's well, because they do the Eco Boost, it's 3.0 is like the
Okay.
big engine that you can get for that. It's still a V6, I believe, but it's got like a 3.0 suspension and a couple other tweaks to make it uh, just a little beefier for really taking it out on trails and bashing it. But honestly, at this point, with the RPG suspension that I have and the wide body kit, most people ask me if it's a Raptor, and I'm happy to say it's not. But can do just about everything they do. I have the same travel dimensions and same width, so it basically is one, just with some different, arguably stronger parts now.
Typically, when you put aftermarket parts of any kind and actually build it the right way, it'll be better than like anything that's coming off the line. Essentially, that's just kind of a plug and play factory kind of build, right? So
Mhm.
like even well, no, I'm not going to start firing shots at the TRX and stuff like that. But yeah, typically anything from the factory has room to improve for sure. Um, have there been a lot of I know it's theoretically the sixth gen, but have there been a lot of issues with this with the Broncos essentially, like things that obviously they haven't the fifth gen didn't have some of the electrical components and some of the newer components. Like, have there been a lot of kinks to iron out in the Broncos?
There haven't been too many, but the people that have been affected by them, it's been a huge pain. I know, in particular, the first edition, which I have a first edition model. It's one of the numbers that are at risk. They've had some catastrophic engine issues, which is huge. It's warranty covered, but it's the time it would set you back is a nightmare. And I'm knocking on every piece of wood I have here that I haven't been subject to that particular problem. The other big one, when the truck, aside from general availability, that's been the number one issue, is that people that wanted one the first year that they came out, some of them are still waiting for the right model that they've asked for. So the availability has been tough, and the hard tops have been the biggest issue. It was a parts constraint, so a lot of people had to switch their orders to a soft top in order to get their Bronco within the first year or two, and the soft tops are not good. People have not been very happy with the soft top. The hard tops that have arrived, a lot of them got recalled and ended up getting replaced. Mine is experiencing a delamination on the side where you can actually start seeing through the gray into like the honeycomb pattern that's underneath it. So
Awesome.
I don't know if Ford's going to help me with that or not, but I have so much shit piled on top of the roof that to take everything off, I don't even want to think about that. So yeah, so those have been it, but not a lot of complaints in terms of like the actual performance of the truck, the four-wheel drive components, the suspension, the like everything that if you got the truck and you got what you ordered, for the most part, people have been extremely happy with how it performs without doing any modifications, and that's really a testament to what Ford has been doing. They've been doing it with the F-150 Raptor. A lot of people are very happy with those. They carried over what they were doing well and put it into this Bronco with a little bit sportier stance. And I mean, when you get behind the wheel of this thing and you drive it off road and you put a little speed behind it, you can tell that that is exactly what they intended. It was all the commercials was showing the truck just ripping.
Yeah.
And when you take it out and you start moving with it, the way it handles, the way it just like, oh, it makes me want to go out right now. And in fact, I got a trip this weekend.
Nice.
I got a really fun trip this weekend on Saturday. I'm going to be down in Barstow and Johnson Valley, like Southern California. I'm going on an event called the Smuggler's Run. Have you heard about this?
I've heard about it just because it's such a gangster name, the Smuggler's Run. But is it that one that's like a poker kind of like you pick cards at different rally points, or am I thinking of something completely
So
different?
it's a scavenger hunt race rally and escape room puzzle type thing, but it's all themed as like Mad Max scavenger
Oh
post-apocalyptic.
man.
And so I've got the truck dressed up. I got some, some like fake barbed wire and chains and skulls and cargo netting on it.
Oh.
And I got costumes. I'm going full on. I want to win this thing. And so I got my buddy that's going with me. We're going to get some good footage, some cool wasteland photos that I'm looking forward to. And overall, I think I'm going to have a really good time. So I'm looking forward to it. But I'm going to be going fast and
Oh god, that sounds
going to hit the spot.
amazing. The event in general sounds like a good time, and then when you add dressing up your own vehicle and like that kind of aspect to it, it sounds like an absolute blast.
I'm really looking forward to the footage that I get. I think it's going to lead to some really cool photos and videos. So you'll see that on the account soon enough.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that because yeah, like you said, like some like wasteland type post-apocalyptic like shots is going to be just amazing. Which brings me to this question: were you off-roader, overlander first, and then got into the photography aspect, or did you get a badass rig because you were into the photography and you knew it would just kind of elevate that kind of world for you, and then you got into overlanding and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, technically the photography came first. I mean, like I said, I had a Bronco a long time ago. It was like my first vehicle, and I had been California going with my cousin. He had the rig. He was my driver for a few years before the Bronco came out. The photography was something I was always dabbling with and doing, but I committed to, I want to take the truck. I want the truck to take me places, and I want to practice my photography when I get there and try and share and capture the experiences that I get to have and share that as like my portfolio. And again, just for fun. It was just a hobby that I wanted to do. But in doing so, I ended up taking photos that companies could use, and it was helping them. It was helping me get more parts and get sponsorships. So I just kept doing it. And, to this day, I still do it because I want to. I have very few contractual commitments. Some that I've done, I've used it to make gas money and, do a little hustle. I've also been driving it towards some charity work that I do every year, and that's pretty much it. But like it was to give me a subject to photograph, so that I could continue to practice using my camera. And it's just led to me getting a little more creative, getting a few new toys, doing some drone work, stuff like that.
That's awesome, man. What's the charity work?
So the charity, it's actually Extra Life on my hat. It's part of Children's Miracle Network, which is a network of children's hospitals. And every year, I'm a gamer and nerd. I've been that way my whole life. And I do this 24-hour gaming marathon where I raise money. Instead of running a marathon or doing an Ironman or something like that, I game for 24 hours. I stream on Twitch and I try and raise money for a hospital back home in New Jersey. And so every year I've been doing that. And now this year I've been trying to like actually bring my followers along, and I've talked about it multiple times throughout the year. I'll do a big push. My game day is November 11th. And so I'll be doing it again and sending out the messaging to try and drive participation in that. There's a couple of videos on Instagram that I put together, and so that'll help people find out more about that. But I'll be sharing more about that in the next month or so.
What games are you playing?
Man, this year I've fallen so behind on all the games that have come out, so I have a lot to choose from. I'm thinking about, I think the new Spider-Man game on PS5 is going to be out just before this game day, so that might be one. There's staying with the post-apocalyptic theme. There's a game that's supposed to be out in November called The Day Before, which is supposed to be this like open world zombie apocalypse game. So like that might be one. Um, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot, and I haven't. This has been like one of the busiest summers that I've had, so I haven't been playing games much at all. Last year was like Call of Duty the whole time, but this time I think I've got a lot more choices.
What's your Twitch handle?
That is the real Frank.
The Real Frank,
Yeah,
Frank.
Fronc.
Okay.
Fronc.
All right. So the Real Frank, Foronc.
Yeah.
Perfect, man. I'll definitely stop in and check that out. I was gonna say from the Secret Labs chair, I was like, I bet you eat games. I bet you with the chair like that, like the Cadillac of chairs. I
Yeah.
used to have one and I miss it.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. I've been a gamer for my whole life. Before I worked at this self-driving car company, I was a lawyer at PlayStation.
No way.
And the Sony discount that I got at PlayStation is how I got all my camera gear. So that fed into the
Oh
camera
yeah.
photography habits. So it's all part of the same thing,
It all
It's a
intertwines.
series of events that just led me to this.
Oh man, that's awesome. I love it. All right. Before I let you go, what is in your cup every morning and how do you take it?
All right. Yeah. Coffee.
All right.
It's funny because when you send me the questions ahead of time, you're like, what do you drink first in the morning and how do you take your coffee? And because it's just assumed that's the answer, but it is. I've been into the pour over brewing.
Yeah.
So I've got the Chemex pot, boil the water. I get my coffee from a service called Trade, and
Okay.
they send me bags of coffee that have been roasted like the day or two before I receive it,
Oh,
and
nice.
it's been great. And they send it from like all over different places, and they take your taste profile and account for that.
Oh,
But I
wow.
drink my coffee black. That's 99 out of 100 times black, no sugar, and I drink probably a whole pot every day at a minimum.
That's probably. I find I'm glad that I go black coffee as well because I feel like it's gonna. My wife can't. She can't do it without cream. She needs her cream, and if she doesn't have cream, she's not having coffee, which can be a miserable day. But when it's black coffee, especially when you're out on the trails and stuff like that, you have no requirements other than just the coffee bean and hot water. That's it. And
Yeah.
that's definitely the way to go. Do you like? Do they so taking your taste buds into account, like are you like darker roast, lighter roast, like what do they alter for your coffee?
Yeah, I think so you can rate them too. So I think it takes that into account. So like even if you don't know your preferences, as you start receiving them, you can like give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I think in the vein of practicality and utility, I go with light roast because it's actually higher caffeine content. And the same way as you, like when I'm out on the trail, despite having the means to keep things refrigerated, and I could take cream if I wanted to now at this point, it's always just easier to just brew your coffee, ready to go. Don't need to include anything else, and always be able to have coffee because it's more important to have coffee than to have it the way you want it.
Yeah.
You know, uh, your wife, I appreciate the fact that she must not need it that bad if
Oh no, she
she can be
does.
that picky.
She does, and she's gone like because when we lived in Mexico, they only have there's only like the coffee creamer that they have. It seldomly was in the store. And if we didn't go Wednesday at the exact time of day, which was always random, she wouldn't have creamer. So she'd get, six of these things at a time. And then she'd go like a week without coffee and just be miserable. I'd be like, hey, just have a black coffee. Nah, I'm like, whatever, do your thing. But that being said, how you said you can refrigerate the cream, I discovered from talking to somebody else that um, if you have cream in your fridge in your rig and you're going on bumpy roads, depending if it's too high, it goes into whipped cream, and then you're
Yeah,
screwed. I was like,
that's right.
all right, well that's another problem. She listened to that. She's like, oh shit, that's now I gotta go down to half and half. Wow.
Oh man, yeah, I hadn't even thought about the fact that it might get whipped up or churned.
Yeah.
Oh man,
So black coffee's the way to go. All right, my friend.
agreed.
I once again failed miserably at my 20-minute time window, but I don't mind that at all. Thank you, man, for making the time and stopping in and being my first Bronco. Basically, my first person to ask questions about the Bronco because I see it. And like I said, I love that stance, but I was always kind of unsure or didn't really know much about that. I was like, you know what? Those Bronco people, they all want to stay together. They don't want anybody else in there. But no, it's I appreciate shedding the light on the world of Broncos, and I definitely cannot wait to see the content that you get this upcoming trip this weekend.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you having me. And when you do pass through California, reach out. Let me know when you're around. We'll
Hundred
meet up.
percent, absolutely, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Cool.
All right,
Let me
man.
know if you have any other questions or you want to have another chat part two.
Oh, definitely, for sure. I think I want to try to do one of these a day, so I'm gonna run through. I'm gonna run through everybody who wants to talk to me, and then everybody else is gonna be like, "Oh, no, get out of here," and then I'll start going back to my previous people and catching up and seeing where you guys are at.
All right. Well, good luck with it. I'm
Hey,
looking forward
thanks
to
a lot,
seeing it.
man. Thanks a lot. You take
Take care.
care.